Yes, good morning once again. Today we are going to look at the basics of nutrition education. Last time we looked at the principles of nutrition counseling or the theoretical basis of nutrition counseling. And there we are tackling the basic concepts that are involved when you're carrying out nutrition counseling. How do you conduct the counseling? What are the techniques of counseling? We talked about the Galidra approach. We talked about motivational interviewing. And then we talked about the OAS approach in motivational interviewing. And we came down to several aspects. What are the components of a counseling session? How do you carry out the session? And we talked about the four major components, that is nutrition assessment, nutrition diagnosis, nutrition intervention, and then monitoring and evaluation. We understood those concepts very well. So today we want to go to the basics of nutrition education. We want to understand what is nutrition education, how did nutrition education come about, and how do we conduct nutrition education? What are the techniques of nutrition education? So we are going to look at all those basic concepts, and I would like you all to be very attentive and pick all that you can from this session, because it is very important for nutrition professionals, public health nutritionists, public health professionals, healthcare management. All sectors are very important. So it's very important for you to get these concepts very well. So nutrition education basically focuses on enhancing health and facilitating solutions. We want to make sure that we promote good health and nutrition. And if there are some challenges to this, we have to find solutions, lasting solutions. So to bring up or lead a process that not only provides knowledge, information, and skills, but also fosters development, growth, and change. This is one of the goals of nutrition education. And nutrition education entails a systematically planned set of activities. It is a very essential component to improve the nutritional status of a population as a whole, and is also very crucial for the well-being of people in a general population. So let's look at a brief history of nutrition education. How did nutrition education come up and when? So nutrition education has been a very old concept that has been in existence for a very long time, for over 1,000 years. It is dated as old as nutrition science itself, although initially it went unrecognized. And some literature points back to the early 1300s. And the pioneering controlled clinical trial of the various therapies recommended for the disease of scurvy. This survey was carried out in 1746 by a scientist known as James Lind on sailors at the sea. James Lind was a 30-year-old ship's surgeon in the British Navy. He had no academic education, but he had a very special interest in the problem of scurvy. He went ahead and took 12 sailors, all with a similar severity of the disease, and divided these sailors into two pairs. For 2 weeks. He gave each pair one of the many treatments that were recommended for the treatment of scurvy. So we find that the most important thing we drew from this study for modern readers is that there were some treatments, but out of those treatments, we picked out two. One of the treatments he was giving to these pairs was lemons and oranges. These are vitamin C rich foods. And remember, scurvy is a nutritional deficiency disease occurring as a result of lack of vitamin C. So he gave one pair lemons and oranges, and he gave another pair a certain treatment of dilute sulfuric acid or vinegar. So just after 6 days, the pair that was receiving lemons and oranges recovered almost completely. But those that were receiving other treatments, such as dilute sulfuric acid or vinegar, had shown no improvement after even 2 weeks. So this was enough evidence that good nutrition, particularly the consumption of vitamin C rich foods, could prevent the situation of scurvy and even treat it. In 1842, George Bird, this was a professor of medicine at King's College, London, gave a remarkable lecture titled Disorders Resulting from Defective Nutriment. He pointed out that these disorders, are no doubt frequently presented to us by the destitute poor in large towns. These are people that had no knowledge of nutrition. They ate the way they liked. Some did not even afford some of the foods, and so they suffered from these nutritional deficiencies. In the early 1900s, researchers discovered evidence for the importance of specific components of foods in maintaining health and in curing or preventing many recently identified deficiency diseases. Between 1900 and 1910, following the publication of the vitamin hypothesis, which was proposed by Sir Frederick Garland Hopkins, medical educators increasingly began to support the teaching of nutrition principles. Went ahead to 1918, Professor McCollum also encouraged the teaching of nutrition in medical schools. Between 1930 and 1940, there were many important micronutrients that were isolated and synthesized, and medical educators were engaged in teaching students the biochemical and clinical aspects of nutrition. So nutrition became more important as time went by, and up until now, that you see how very important nutrition is in our aspects. And nutrition education particularly is one of the major components of nutrition. So in the US, the Public Health Service Act was enacted in 1944, and this broadened the scope of the public health service functions. And there was a decline in nutrition education during the 1950s and 1960s. Nutrition was relegated to a low priority in the curriculum, and it was no longer taught as an independent course. So you saw people became reluctant about nutrition and well-being. The American Medical Association Council on Foods and Nutrition reported that nutrition in the US medical schools received inadequate recognition, support, and attention. In 1961, a public and professional awareness of the inadequacies in nutrition education for physicians and other healthcare professionals was further stimulated by Charles E. Butterworth's article, The Skeleton in the Hospital Closet. And public policy issues also came in. Nutrition education status became elevated to a public policy in the late 1970s, following widespread malnutrition, hunger, and chronic disease in the United States, and aroused medical as well as political concern. So once nutrition became neglected, once again, issues of malnutrition sprang up, and this led to nutrition becoming a public policy. Nutrition education must be conducted in all aspects of life. In 1972, the Nutrition Education and Training Program, the NET, was created by the USDA. And this program was targeted towards school children, teachers, parents, and service workers. This NET program was overseen by two USDA units, one, the Food and Nutrition Service, and two, the Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion. And these current programs entail the MyPlate, Dietary Guidelines for Americans, Team Nutrition, SNAP-Ed, etc. There are a lot of programs under this NET program. And today we find nutrition education as a very essential component in improving dietary habits and food choices in order to reverse the undernutrition and improve the nutritional diagnosis worldwide. So this is the simple history of nutrition education, or nutrition basically, and this is a very, very important history that will help us to strengthen our programs in our daily lives. So we go ahead and ask ourselves, why is nutrition education important? Why nutrition education of all things? Why not health education? Why not health promotion? But why are we focusing on only nutrition education today? We want to know the roles of nutrition education. One, nutrition education is very important in influencing public policies and promoting access to a variety of nutritious foods. It is also very important in helping to develop personal skills and motivation to adopt healthy eating practices. It helps to develop nutrition advisory services and nutrition education for the public. And it is also very important to participate in coordinated community nutrition programs. And finally, overall, nutrition education helps to improve nutrition status and the quality of life in our communities. So again, what are the functions of nutrition education? We had the roles of nutrition education. Why nutrition education? But also want to look at the functions of nutrition education. Why do we conduct nutrition education? One of the most important functions is to increase awareness. We want to have a wide coverage of the population having knowledge on nutrition and also practicing healthy eating habits in order to achieve good health and well-being. Nutrition education also helps to enhance motivation of the people. Once people are very motivated, then they'll be able to practice what we preach to them. Nutrition education also facilitates action among local people. If one person has knowledge about nutrition, she will gladly go and share with another that does not have knowledge. And together, they will put these practices into action. And again, nutrition education can help to improve environmental support. When you empower a group of people, then you have empowered a whole population, because this group that you've empowered will go ahead to empower others, and others will empower others. So it becomes a chain of knowledge, whereby one person educates another, another educates another. Then together we shall all have knowledge about nutrition, and then we shall practice good eating habits. The role of nutrition educators. As a nutritionist, what is your role in nutrition education? As a public health practitioner, a healthcare manager, or a health student, what is your role in nutrition education? One of the major roles of nutrition educators is to assess the nutritional needs of the people and the communities they serve. When you know these nutritional needs of the population, then you're going to be able to develop programs, materials, and events to teach people about nutrition topics. It is also going to be very important for these nutrition educators to teach people how to manage existing nutrition-related health conditions. And how will you know that there is a problem if you have not gone to the community to do assessment? That brings us to the first point of assessing the needs. Needs assessment is one of the most important roles of nutrition educators. And also, nutrition education is very important, and the nutrition educators will be able to evaluate the effectiveness of the programs and educational materials. Once you implement a certain program, or once you offer nutrition education, then after some while, you'll be able to also evaluate how effective this program has been. For example, if as a nutritionist, you are going ahead to conduct food demonstrations, you teach people about what kind of foods to eat in order to prevent what kind of deficiencies. After a while, you will go back and assess, did the nutritional status of these people improve as a result of the knowledge I gave them? Did they practice what I told them so that they improved their status? If so, then now you'll know your program was successful. But if you find that instead the nutrition status of the people is declining further, then you will know that your program did not succeed. Then you have to mitigate other measures in order to strengthen your program. Nutrition educators are also very helpful in finding health and nutrition services or information. You sensitize people about what health and nutrition services are available in their communities or in the whole country. They also provide training programs for community nutrition workers or other health professionals. If you specialize in nutrition education and you have vast knowledge about it, you'll go ahead now and train those people in the community, such as the community nutrition workers, community nutrition volunteers, home health promoters, and also other health professionals on how to provide nutrition education to the clients that they serve. Nutrition educators also supervise staff that implement health education programs. They go ahead to collect and analyze data to learn about a particular community and also improve programs and services in that area. Nutrition educators also advocate for improved nutrition resources and policies that promote wellness. The goal of nutrition education. The major goal of nutrition education is to equip people with knowledge, skills, and motivation for proper diet selection and consumption. And when we are conducting nutrition education, the major target areas is the urban and the rural communities. And then also we look at the vulnerable groups, the children, the pregnant, the lactating women, the elderly. These are some of the specific groups that we focus on when we are conducting nutrition education. The objectives of nutrition education. Why do we carry out nutrition education? Or when we are carrying out nutrition education, what is our aim? What are some of our objectives? One of the objectives is household food security. Through conducting nutrition education, we want to make sure that there will be sustained household food security, whereby they will be essential for balancing intake. The communities should be able to balance the intake of the various nutrients in order to prevent malnutrition. And also the second objective is to equip the communities with knowledge and skills for development. For example, growing, purchasing, processing, and preparing of nutritious foods. And then changing undesirable habits. We have to teach the communities to come out of those local habits that lead to malnutrition. You address traditions and taboos affecting nutrition. And some of these things will become culturally very sensitive. So before you go ahead to conduct nutrition education in a particular community, you have to make sure that you know the taboos and the particular customs and traditions of that community, so that when you're tailoring your messages to them, they are very specific to their context and they do not damage their ego about their customs and taboos and traditional beliefs. The key components of nutrition education. One is to increase public knowledge and awareness. That is one of the key components. And under this, we want to make sure that we enhance the relationship between diet, health, and productivity. How is the community going to be able to have good health and nutrition? They have to make sure they eat well. And how are they going to eat well? They will achieve this by making sure that they have agricultural productivity of these goods in their areas. Also, nutritional needs and food safety. What are some of the ways in which they will keep their food safe from spoilage? How will they keep this food for long so that they're having sustained food security in their area? And also 3, understanding nutritional disorders and the benefits of food labeling. We have to make the communities aware about understanding the various disorders, how to prevent them, and how to treat them. And also how important it is for them to read food labels in order to know the specific nutrients that are available in the foods they consume, in the foods that they buy from various places, such as supermarkets. 2, we want to promote desirable food behaviors. And under this, we have to empower the communities about the value of the various foods and the components of an adequate diet. We have to make sure also we empower the communities about hygienic food preparation and equitable food distribution, and how they should make sure they have proper food choices and purchases. When they go to the market to purchase goods, what are some of the good choices of the foods that they can make in order to have a balanced diet and good health? increasing food supply, diversity, and quantity. This is also very important. And under this, we have methods for improving food production. We have to teach them about how they will improve their food production. If, for example, the area is having too much sunshine, there is no rain, how are they going to make sure that they still produce these goods? You encourage them to water. What about if they don't have enough water? What are you going to do as a nutrition educator? You have now to involve other sectors so that they may be able to access this water, to water their crops so that they can have sustained food security. Crop selection and preservation techniques. What are some of the varieties of crops that they can grow? These crops that can grow very healthily without getting diseased. How do you preserve these crops once you have harvested them? And then also prevention of food waste. These are very important components of nutrition, education, and subcomponents too. All right, so again, we go down to look at the aspect of interactive education. When you're conducting your nutrition education session, what are some of the key things that you should have in mind? How do you conduct the session so that the people be able to be motivated, understand your concepts, and put them into practice? This is what we call interactive education. For learning to be effective, it must be interactive. This is one of the things I emphasize whenever I'm having my lectures. Let the session not be monotonously drawn to the lecturer or the tutor. You should not own everything. Involve the people that you're educating. Let they also have their contributions. What do they have to say about this and this? So when the session is interactive, you find that your learners get motivated, they feel valued, and they're able to contribute and also take what you've told them into practice. So education is a method or a teaching strategy that interactively engages the client in the education process. It goes ahead to provide an opportunity for the client to ask questions and also provide feedback to the educator. So the major way that you'll evaluate the progress of your education program is by asking for feedback from the people that you have taught, from your learners. How was the session? Was it helpful? If it was helpful, after some time you'll come back and ask them, how did you put what I told you into practice? Then now they'll bring out practical aspects of what you told to them. This will be the evidence that your education session was interactive and it was impactful to the community. So these learning opportunities can mainly happen when a dietitian or a nutritionist and a client meet individually. They can also take place during group nutrition education activities. No matter the interactive techniques that you're using, make sure that your client is able to identify individual goals or issues that are very important to them and develop a plan to meet these goals for behavior change. Effective nutrition education. For a nutrition education session to be successful, you have to make sure you tailor it to the specific needs of that particular community or that particular individual. And some of the goals for an effective nutrition education session is to reinforce positive nutrition behaviors. 2, you have to make sure you provide motivation for dietary changes. And also you have to enhance knowledge and confidence in nutrition practices. Applaud your community members, your learners. If there's something they are doing well, applaud them. If there's something they're not doing right, teach them how it is done the right way, but do not offer negative criticism. Encourage them so that they can come out of those negative behaviors so as to adapt positive nutrition practices. And the key elements of this effective nutrition education is correct information on food quality and safety. This is one of the elements that is talked about in nutrition education. 2, you have to also provide support for behavior changes that lead to improved nutrition. Strategies for a successful nutrition education session. 1. Active participation. As you conduct your session, make sure that it is very active. Engage the community in the nutrition education session. Like I said earlier, the session should not be only drawn to you. It should be focused on both sides. Communication is two-way. I tell you what to do, you give me feedback about what I've told you. So it is two-way. You give the message, they give you feedback. 2, intersectoral collaboration. You have to make sure you involve professionals from various fields. As a nutritionist, you'll never work alone. When you go to the community, when you go to the hospital, anywhere you are as a nutritionist, you're going to find other professionals, such as nurses, doctors, agriculturalists, food scientists. You're going to find various professionals, and you have to make sure you work together with them so as to achieve results. Comprehensive programs. Utilize all the sources available to broaden the reach, such as multimedia. You can use radios, you can use television, you can use newspapers, and these days we have the internet, the World Wide Web. This is a very important platform that helps you to reach your knowledge to the whole world. So you have to make sure you engage all these sessions and these platforms. Limitations and challenges for achieving an effective nutrition session. One of the major challenges that we have in achieving an effective nutrition education session is resource constraints. You find that as you conduct your education program, some of the tools that you need are not available, and you cannot afford to have them. So this is going to be limiting your education session. These programs that you offer must be realistic and applicable to the local conditions. For example, if you're teaching about irrigation, there has to be practicability. These tools for irrigation should be there so that you show them how this irrigation is done. And the second biggest challenge is cultural sensitivity. Like I said earlier, you have to make sure you recognize the local customs and knowledge. It is very important for you to achieve an effective program. When you know what the community believes in, then you know how to tailor their messages in order for them not to feel offended and for them to take in the message that you're giving them. Nutrition education approaches. Some of the approaches to achieving a very successful nutrition education session is the individual or conventional approach. This is an approach that focuses on health sector initiatives, and usually it is offered face-to-face, via face-to-face communication. In this session, you have to make sure that as an educator, you use a variety of techniques to best convey the necessary information. And when you're conducting this session, we have 2 particular counseling methods that you will use in individual nutrition education. One of them is the client-centered nutrition education, and the second is motivational interviewing. These 2 aspects, we looked at them earlier on in the first session of nutrition counseling. So we just want to look briefly into it and understand how do you conduct the client-centered session and how do you conduct the motivational interviewing session. The client-centered nutrition education. This teaching technique involves the client in making decisions and solving problems identified. It is focused mainly on the client's needs and attempts to guide the client towards setting goals that will lead to behavioral change. And this technique mainly applies the stages of change model for behavior change as its foundation. This stages of change model has mainly 5 steps. The first step is pre-contemplation. This is before the client even knows they have a problem. Then after that, you get them aware about the problem that is existent. That is the contemplation phase. After that, when the client now knows that there is a problem, that they will now think about it. Should I be able to act against this problem, or should I just continue with my state of life? The client has to prepare, preparation phase. Then after the preparation, now when the client is ready, the client now will declare action. The client is ready to change their habits in order to achieve better nutrition outcomes. And after the client acts, there has to be maintenance, because along the way, this client may relapse. And when the client relapses, the client has to go back to the beginning. So it is a cycle. Once the cycle is broken, you have to go back to square one. You repeat. And the educator determines the client's readiness to change using the stages of change model. Counseling and proposed steps toward goals depends upon which stage the client is currently in. You have to know how far has the client gone. It is in that stage that you'll be able to talk to the client about the particular issue at hand. And for example, if the client is in the contemplation stage, it is not going to be important for you to educate this client about actions that talk about maintaining a new behavior. The client is just still thinking about whether to take action or not. So it's useless and pointless for you to start talking about that action, you see? So the counseling session has to be tailored to the specific stage. This client-centered education allows the educator to establish rapport with the client while helping them to solve health-related issues. Earlier on in the previous session I talked about the importance of rapport, building a relationship with your client before you start your counseling session or your education session. Rapport with an individual takes time to grow. And as it grows, you find that the client becomes more trustworthy. She starts to trust you even more and take in whatever you tell them. We also have some challenges in client-centered nutrition education. One of the reasons why it may become ineffective is due to one-way information transfer. You find that some individuals, instead of making the session interactive, they will just focus on themselves as an educator. You keep talking, and after talking, you say thank you and move on. No. When you do this, this is going to cause a one-way transfer of information. And on the other side, you'll not be able to get feedback about how effective your session was. 2 is lack of community involvement. Because this is an one-on-one session, you're not involving the community in decision-making and also in accessing this information that you're trying to transfer. And this approach also ignores the local cultural context. Motivational interviewing. This is the second approach in the nutrition education. This was first used extensively with the people that had addiction problems. And this motivational interviewing soon became very important, and it was found to have much broader uses, and it is now used anytime when the educator wishes to help a client explore and resolve areas of conflict. The focus here is still on the client's concerns and needs, but here we find that we use tools to determine how likely the client is to change a particular behavior. It focuses on areas where there appears to be a conflict between the client's values and actions. When the client tells you about their problem, you mitigate solutions to this problem. But usually you find that there are some actions and values that may be conflicting with one another. So here you have to make sure you apply the motivational interviewing technique. You have to encourage the client and build their confidence so that they're able to practice and put these actions into better use. For instance, this client may say that they value a thin, healthy weight, but the interview reveals that the person snacks frequently and never exercises. So you find that there is conflicting loyalty there. The client wants to have a healthy body, but the client is eating recklessly. So one, you have to make sure you get the client out of that reckless eating so that they're able to achieve a better health outcome. You have to encourage the client to conduct exercises so that they're able to have better weight. So the educator has to point out these inconsistencies and help the client find strategies to resolve these conflicts. You enlighten the client, tell her, because you're eating like this and you're not exercising, there is redundancy in your body, and there is storage of some of these calories. They are going to be stored as fat, and your body is going to become bigger. You're going to gain more weight. You'll not be able to achieve this valuable, thin, healthy weight. So in order for you to achieve this healthy weight, you have to make sure that you cut down on some of the snacks that you take, and you have to make sure that you at least have 30 minutes of vigorous intensity physical exercises 3 times in a week. So by telling the client that, the client is going to now realize, the way I've been eating is not healthy. So let me make a change and let me also exercise. So the client will become more confident in themselves and in taking action. So it also requires time to establish rapport with a client to a level that allows interviewing to be most effective. So to be very successful, it is important that a client sees the same educator or counselor at each visit, so that interactions can be ongoing. If, for example, the principal educator is not around for a particular day, this client would better wait for that educator to come back. Because if another person goes on to interview or to counsel this client, it is not going to achieve good results. So the success is going to be guaranteed if one person takes a client throughout the session from the beginning to the end. So this also helps the client to establish a foundation of trust and be more comfortable in working on problems and in behavior change. What about the current approaches? What are some of the current approaches? The other individual counseling or the conventional methods, these were the traditional methods that were applied since time immemorial. But now we have some different strategies that have come up in the current era. For example, social marketing. This social marketing approach promotes socially responsible behaviors using marketing strategies. It involves consumer research to tailor messages to cultural norms and needs. So in social marketing, we have what we call social marketing philosophy. The core belief here is that the customer or the consumer decisions involve choosing between behavior patterns based on benefits and sacrifices. For example, if you want to compare breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, consumer perspective, there has to be understanding on how to make desired behaviors more attractive than alternatives. If you want to make sure that the population takes in exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, you have to encourage them and give them knowledge about the importance of breastfeeding and how breastfeeding is going to help the baby to grow well and become healthy, versus bottle feeding that is going to make the baby instead be prone to infections, and these infections are going to cause the child to become sick and have malnutrition. So when you weigh these two things and you compare the good and the bad about each of them, then the client will be able to choose which one is a better approach. So planning and implementation of social marketing. One, you have to make sure you conduct field investigation. You have to assess the current nutrition situation. What is the nutritional status of the particular people in the community? What are the deficiencies they're suffering from? What is the major problem? Once you get this, you have to also go on and understand the community knowledge, attitude, and practices. That is the first step, field investigation. Find out the current nutrition situation, understand the knowledge, attitudes, and practices so that you're able to tailor your education according to their beliefs. The community-oriented information is the next step. Here, you have to identify the specific community needs and expectations. And once you have done so, you go ahead and receive oriented messages. Develop messages that promote key behavior changes considering the local resources and culture. You have to also carry out audience segmentation. In audience segmentation, you divide the community into groups with similar interests and then identify the relevant benefits and the resistance points affecting food security and nutrition. And after doing all the above, then now you go on and identify a communication channel. This communication channel should combine interpersonal communication with mass media, for example, radio, television, printing out these newspapers or articles. So you have to make sure that your session is reaching a vast number of the members of the community. You go on and again develop and pre-test, create and refine your messages based on the feedback that you receive. So we have to make sure we develop and pre-test our strategies. And once you do that, you have to now monitor and evaluate. Measure the impact of your education program. What are the habitual changes? What is the adoption rate? How many people have adapted the strategies that you have taught? And from that, then you'll be able to weigh the effectiveness of your program. Then we also have the community-based approach. The community-based approach focuses on effectiveness. We combine community programs with mass media, and this leads to better results. Active participation. When you involve the community, it is very crucial for providing sustainable impact of your nutrition education programs. You have to also find ways to identify constraints to behavior change. What are some of those factors that are leading people to remain rigid or become resistant to the education that you're giving them? What are the resistance points? What are the gaps in knowledge, in skills, and cultural constraints? Maybe it is because of the culture that they believe in that is leading to them not adapting the strategy. For example, when you teach the community about the importance of colostrum, that is the first milk that comes as soon as the infant or the baby is born. And then you find that you're in a community where these people believe that colostrum is bad milk. The baby should not be given this colostrum for the first 3 to 4 days or 5 days because it is bad milk. So you realize that you know that colostrum is very important, but the community has the belief that colostrum is bad. So there is resistance. So for you to achieve impact in that community, you're first supposed to change the behavior and mindset of these people. Encourage them and tell them the importance of this colostrum. Tell them that it is important. It helps to improve the immunity of the baby. It is the first vaccine that is given to the baby. So, psychological conditioning from long-term poverty. You find that in some communities, some people have suffered severe poverty, and it is very hard for them, for example, to start eating a variety of foods. They believe that when they eat more than one type of food at a go, they are wasting food. They are being extravagant. And this is very practical in our contexts. When you go down to our villages and you start saying, now I have eaten my asida with beans, I need now to add on some salads. They will say, these salads can be eaten at another time. This is a different meal. You're wasting food. So some people have a psychological conditioning from long-term poverty, and this is going to cause them to take very long to adapt to the program that you are giving them. Economic considerations. You are preaching about eating a variety of foods, but we are having a community where a person can hardly afford 1,000 SSP in a day. So how are you going to expect these people to change or adhere to your nutrition education? You have to recognize that certain changes may not be feasible due to resource constraints. For example, fuel availability for boiling water. You're encouraging the communities to boil drinking water in order to prevent typhoid and to prevent some waterborne infections. But these people do not have fuel for boiling this water. They can hardly afford charcoal. They can hardly afford even firewood. The area is not very good in population. It is dry, So in that case, it's going to be very hard for you to achieve impact. Balance economic trade-offs. For example, breastfeeding versus work opportunities. So what are some of the communication strategies that you can use in order to achieve a better outcome? Interactive learning. Involve group interactions and ongoing community engagement. For example, feeding programs combined with income-generating activities for mothers. You're encouraging a mother to breastfeed their infant exclusively for 6 months. But this is the same mother that can hardly afford food every day. So in that case, it's going to be very hard to implement that because the breast milk supply is not going to be enough if the mother does not feed well. So in order to achieve impact, teach, provide these feeding programs, and combine them with income generating activities for the mothers. Teach them home gardening, empower them. Let them set up a small business so that they're able to earn a daily living from that. With the money they earn, they're able to buy some of the foodstuffs that they need. So this is how you're able to strengthen your strategies. The limitations of community participation. Power dynamics. Community participation can challenge established power structures and also the need for support. The initial stimulus and the ongoing support are very necessary for success. How do you start your program? And as the program goes on, how do you support this program to continue? Once you're able to overpower these two main limitations, then you're able to achieve a greater impact in your nutrition education program. All right. Planning a community nutrition education program. How do we plan an education program? This is just a repetition, but for those who have been very attentive, you realize that we have already talked about this. Before you start a nutrition education program, you have to make sure you identify the problem. And this is where I talked about going to the community and carrying out field investigation. Find out the nutrition status of the people, find out their knowledge, attitudes, and skills and beliefs. Analyze the nutrition-related problems in the community using focus groups. And then factors discussion. After identifying the problem, identify the social, economic, and cultural contributors to the nutritional issues. What are those social factors that are leading to malnutrition, to undernutrition, particularly under 5 children? What are the economic factors and what are the cultural contributors? Then after that, you formulate and implement. Develop a clear communication strategy with the specific objectives. Once you have identified the problem and you have identified the source of this problem, then you are going to be able to formulate a communication strategy, a clear one that will be able to reach the community understandably. Design and test messages. Select the media that you want to use to offer this message to the community, and then integrate the communication activities. Intersectoral collaboration. Like I said earlier on, a nutritionist can never work alone, a nurse can never work alone, or any health professional cannot work alone without a nutrition professional. We have to make sure we work together. We have to involve the multidisciplinary teams. The nutrition educators and the health educators has to make sure that they have a linkage with the communication specialist. These communication specialists are the ones going to air your message through the radios, through the televisions, through the internet, and also community representatives. How are you going to get these issues from the community when you have not involved the community members? You have to get key informants. These are people that will be able to give you the overview of the issues in the community before you go deep into the community. You have to know the beliefs before even you go down to the people. So you get this, for example, from the chiefs, from the local leaders, the elders. And then coordinated efforts. You have to make sure there is consistent messaging across sectors. The health, agriculture, and education sectors have to make sure that they work together. So this is what we call the intersectoral collaboration effort to achieve an impactful and successful nutrition education session. And briefly, we would like also to look at group nutrition education techniques. As opposed to individual nutrition education, when you're conducting group nutrition education, there are some techniques that you have to also apply. For example, the facilitated group discussion on a topic of common interest. You go onto the community, you choose a particular topic of interest according to the needs of that particular community. And then you get a group of people and you start discussing broadly. Everybody gives you their views about this issue. What about this issue? What are the solutions to this problem? And how are you going to make sure that we implement these solutions? How are we going to monitor this program? All this, you get the views from the people that you're discussing with, the facilitated group discussion. Then we also have the interactive nutrition education activity centers. In our context, everywhere you go, everywhere you find a health center for a hospital, actually all our health centers and nutrition sites, there must be nutrition education. In the morning, before you start any activity, you have to make sure you conduct health and nutrition education. And this is how we are going to strengthen our nutrition programs. Food preparation demonstrations. Food demonstrations, whereby you demonstrate how to prepare these various foods in order to achieve maximum nutrients from the foods. And then traditional group classes. So all these strategies and techniques can provide opportunities for client-educator interactions. These group techniques of nutrition education bring together clients with similar concerns or interests. Basically, that is what we have for today. And before we close this session, I would like to give you this take-home assignment. There is a document on nutrition education. This document was carried out by FAO, and it is titled Why Nutrition Education Matters. I want you to go during your free time and summarize the following. Find out the relevance of nutrition education to the public. List all those relevances that you find in this document, and then for whom is nutrition education targeted? What is the target group for nutrition education? What makes nutrition education an effective strategy for fostering change? And then list the principles of nutrition education that are highlighted in this document. Down there, we have the references for this document. Why Nutrition Education Matters. Go to that link, you'll find the document. And then most of our work, we got it from a framework for nutrition education. Also get that link. Go ahead and find out more information and broaden your knowledge. Thank you very much. This is the end of our session today. If anybody has something to add, maybe one person can add on, and then we close our session. Thank you.